introduce yourselves first.
You want to switch
Yeah, let's do that.
down the row?
Yeah.
Hello, my name's, wow, sorry.
Randy, tiny, 3 minutes.
My name's Karson Walker. I live in Warren with my wife. We have 3 kids. I'm a parent of 3 children in the Alpine School District. I've been a classroom teacher for 26 years in the district. I'm retiring, so I'm gonna have time to devote to education and helping our community. I taught 25 years in Mountain View. I taught the business and marketing, career and technical education classes. For part of that time, I did the work-based learning internships, and I went to the district for a little bit and helped the business and marketing teachers in the district with career and technical education. Then I came back to Mountain View full-time and taught the financial literacy classes. I'm a big believer in parents and being responsive to the community. I think education is very important. I've seen it. I've seen students graduate, go to college, get jobs. I've seen the value that education can add to lives. With livelihood, mindset, optimism, drive, and I think it's just so essential. I would love for you to support me and vote for me and be your voice in this community. I live in this community. My kids go to these schools. I've taught in this area, and I'm just a big believer in education. It's my hobby and my job. One thing I did notice in my career is that sometimes teachers bring biases into the classroom. And our soccer team was doing well, and they needed teachers to ride the fan bus and chaperone, so I went. And one of my colleagues said, when we sat down next to each other to ride the soccer fan bus up, "Hey, are you still teaching that evil capitalism?" And I said, yes I am. I don't think it's evil. Like, if you've been to a grocery store lately, it's pretty amazing, right? It works, the markets work. And so I'm a big believer in markets and capitalism, and I think we need to teach civics, economics, financial literacy, these important subjects to our kids. And I've just seen the value of doing that, not just for their personal lives, but also for career preparation and career exploration. When I was working at the district, I set up a lot of tours for junior high kids to go to Jodi every Friday during the school year. And I'm a big believer in technology and the jobs that are happening in Tucson County, and I want to help connect our kids to those opportunities. So thank you, and I'll just pass it on.
My name is Ada Wilson. I grew up in South Carolina, so I'm a Southern gal. But I moved to Utah. It's been more than 40 years ago. I married my husband Keith, and we raised our 8 children here in this area. And so we've lived here for about 35 years, going through these schools, and we went to Orem Elementary here to this school, Lake Ridge, and Mountain View High School. So we've lived here a long time. And as I look out in the audience, it's fun to see some familiar faces. Many of them are familiar because we literally worked side by side as we volunteered in these schools. I have been involved with my children and with teachers here in the Mountain View cluster for a long time. When I served as a PTA president, I believe that I was the first one who began a process of evaluating how are we doing. And I was the first to make a list where parents could say, you know, I really don't like that, I love this, I have some suggestions for that. And my service in schools became about school improvement. And that's what I'm about as a board member as well. I too, like Karson, understand the value of education. And for all of my 8 children, each one of them can point to a public school teacher who was pivotal in the decisions that they made as to what they were going to do with their lives. And I'm so appreciative of those teachers who earned their respect and who earned that right to be that influence in my my children's lives. I call myself a backpack parent. I truly believe in the importance of being in tune with what's happening in our schools. And for young mothers, that means going through the backpack and knowing what is happening in the classroom, talking with your children, and asking them, what are you learning? What are you talking about in your schools? And I believe that we have the right, if we're not satisfied with what's happening in our schools, we need to fix it. My mantra all through my service has been, if your school is not good enough for your child, it's not good enough for someone else's child either. I think we deserve a good school for everyone, and I'm all about improving things together. Thank you very much.
My name is Jodi Hasson. I have lived here in Orem for about, I think about 15 years going on. My family is from Iowa, so I was raised by the conservative, small town, country, hardworking farm type of lifestyle. That's what I'm used to. And so moving out here to Utah has been amazing because a lot of people around here are of that same mentality: hard work, diligence, education, pushing, working, like all of those extremely important qualities that are necessary to see success in our communities. So when I saw that there was a chance to make a difference in my community, I was all on it. I said, yes, this is what I want. I want this. I want my children to grow up in a place where they know that they can make a difference, where they know that they can do something special. And so that is why I was so interested in becoming a member of the Alpine School District Board of Education. So I feel it is very important to stress the fact I am not a teacher, but I'm a mom. I'm a mom of 4 children who go through public school and have been able to experience very interesting things. My kids have all had different experiences in their different classes and their different things, and all of these things have been wonderful and have helped me to see what I want to do and what I would change and what I would evolve our community into. I am a person who is I am not scared of criticism. I'm not scared of being told the direction I'm going is wrong. Or I'm not scared of somebody coming to my face and saying, hey, we have to talk. Awesome, I'm all ears, let's sit down. I'm that kind of a person. I want to represent you. I want to hear you, I want to listen to you, and I want to hear your experiences and your challenges and your wins and your awesome exciting news and things like that. That is what I want to do. I want to experience life with you, with your children, with your education, with everything that's going on. I'm grateful that I have this opportunity. I look forward to your vote.
My name's Kelley. I'm a school teacher. I've worked in Alpine School District for 25 years, and I too love education. I value what I can do for individuals. I was the son of a steel worker. Grew up right here in the valley. Worked at Geneva Steel, and before I bought my home in Vineyard, I asked my dad if I was okay to buy where I bought. Some of you that grew up here will know that, right? So he said, I said, well, am I going to grow a third arm if I buy this house here? He said, where's it at? No, you'll be okay. I said, great. So my wife and I bought a home in Vineyard. I lived in Orem for about 20 years, moved away for a few years, and then came back, and now in Vineyard again in this area. But I didn't move far away. I moved to Pleasant Grove for a few years. But, lived in Alpine School District my whole life. But I want to start with what I foresee as the problem, and then talk to you a little bit about the solution. What I think. If we go back to the founding of our country, the founders of our country, what they envisioned for our country is that the power is going to be with the individuals, with the people, okay? And that the citizens are who are making the decisions. And we elect representatives, and we elect those representatives, and we hold those representatives accountable through elections. in some ways, we're starting to see that reversed. And I think these last 2 years, we've had our eyes opened, I think, very much to how much that may have been reversed. And so a lot of us are starting to say, wait a second, we've got to take that back. And so if we're talking about the education system, okay, where the power should be first is with the student, and that student's parent, and then to the teacher, and then to the administrators, and then to the board, and then to the state of Utah. And that's the direction it goes, is from those individuals, those students, and those parents first, and then working our way up. And if you look at the Utah State Constitution, it says that. It says that the power in government is with the people. And I had a teacher, and I'm going to tell her story now because I don't know if in the questions I'll have a chance, but this teacher came to me, she said, make sure my story gets told. I said, I will. She said, since Alpine School District made the announcement that students get to walk even if they don't meet the graduation requirements, they get to walk. I had a student that gave up and said, I get to walk anyways. Why do I need to continue to work on graduating? And sometimes we don't see what those decisions at the top do.
Awesome, thank you guys. So we have 5 questions on this one issue. I'm sure you're not going to be surprised. We're going to give you each a minute. I'm going to read all 5 questions. You'll see that they're almost the same.
We're going to rotate who starts. So
Sure. So we'll start with Ada this time. Okay. So here are the 5 questions, but hopefully you can answer all of them in the 1 minute. It's all the same. It's all about Orem dividing. What are your thoughts on the eventual district restructuring? If so, when and how? What is your opinion on Orem becoming its own district? What are the benefits of making Orem its own school district? Teachers who've been polled have stated they are vested with Alpine and they will stay with Alpine. If Orem district is formed, how do you plan on retaining or filling the teacher pool? Is that too many for one question?
We'll try.
Okay.
First of all, I think we need to look at the source of this question. Like, where did it come from? Did it come from the people or somewhere else? I'll just leave you to answer that question for yourself. Second of all, what would be driving this proposition? I have expressed many times as I've met with parents, my only interest in putting a light on this is to make sure that it's driven in the interest of students, of our students, and that it is not politically driven. Those are my 2 only criteria. And we are now in a place where we are waiting to hear the results of a feasibility study. We are assured, oh, that was 1 minute.
8 seconds.
Okay, teachers do not want this, I can tell you that.
I have thought long and hard about this because there are so many different opinions. At the end of the day, I support the Orem feasibility study, whatever it comes out and says. Data is data. However, I do believe that it has brought some amazing questions to the idea of Orem becoming its own district. To retain the teachers, I think that's pretty easy. Teachers don't want to lose their job. They don't. They'll stay with Orem because Orem's not going to change anything. Teachers also will have the opportunity to have smaller class sizes. We'll have an opportunity to have a district that can support them and bring them to have their needs met because they're not as big, right? There are a lot of benefits. There are a lot of positives to the idea of split. Taxes, you'll hear people say, oh, taxes are going to raise. They won't. And the reason why I know they won't is because in Granite School District, they didn't have their taxes go up. Instead, what happened is that the taxes were spread out. And so Granite School District itself did not have taxes raised, okay? So taxes are not going to be a factor as much. The financial side of it is not going to be a factor as much. And in fact, our children are going to be able to have a little bit better education.
I'm going to try to answer those questions, but let me just say this first. The voters will ultimately get to decide. So the citizens of Orem will get to vote and decide as to whether they want to do that or not. And I would encourage every citizen of Orem to study the issues and to look at it. One of the things that I'm looking at with this is if it's only about, if it's only about money, it may or may not make sense. Let's wait for the feasibility study to make that determination. But the question you have to ask is, do you want a big federal government, or do you want the power to be at the local level? I want the power to be at the local level. The Alpine School District is one of the 40th, it's in the top 40 largest districts in the country. It's too big. And our own administrators admit it's too big. And we need to look at how to split it, okay? So Alpine admits this, but then they do nothing about it. So we've got to look at what's the best way to do this. And I think the feasibility study will shed some light on some of those matters.
So this is an important question, and I think it's not gonna go away. I didn't realize, I thought I was pretty involved, that the state school board had come to Alpine School District and requested Alpine School District to do its own study on splitting eventually, right? So Alpine's aware that it's a big district and that it needs to split. So I think the question is where and how and what makes sense. When you have a large district, there's certain economies of scale. One district office, one superintendent, bus garages, there's some advantages. But I think it comes down to, we're gonna get the data from the feasibility study, we're gonna look at it, and like has been mentioned, if the city decides to go forward, it's gonna go to a vote of all the citizens. So I haven't decided one way or the other. I'm willing to, with an open mind, look at the data.
There's been a request that we spend more time on this question. Can I, by a raise of hands, how many would like each candidate to take another minute on this issue? Okay. How many would like each candidate to take 2 more minutes on this issue? All right, we'll go with 1 more minute. So we'll start in the same order. Is that order?
Okay, I have a list. Oh.
Slip down.
It is not important.
To Jodi's point, the employees of Orem City have the same job for only 1 year, and after that, their salaries are not guaranteed at all. There will not be smaller class sizes. A small district does not necessarily guarantee smaller class sizes. That is not a true assertion. There will be increased taxes. You just look at the logistics of it. My estimate is that there will be a $21.1 million shortfall. There is no guarantee that there will be a better education, and every expectation that programs will be cut. This is doesn't have to be a situation that the people decide. It's going to be the Orem City Council that decides first. And I do not believe it was the Utah School Board's education that requested that, Karson. It was me. I requested a study by the board.
Goodness, that makes it hard to begin with this in 1 minute. Okay, so having the board investigate itself is like, I'm just going to make an analogy from shooting from my head. It's like having a criminal decide whether or not he's guilty, right? So you have to have somebody outside actually adjust it, actually look into it. And so that was one thing that I disagree with when Alpine says, we've already done this, and da-da-da. No, you have to have actually outside sources. And on top of that, you have to look at so many different avenues of it that Alpine School District doesn't necessarily look at. With Orem being the one who's controlling the money, it means that Orem needs to decide where that money goes. There's so many programs right now that are being funded that are wasted. There's so many programs right now that are being used by 5, 6, 7 students at a school. Why can't we have programs that are going to be used and funded by 100 of those students? So it's great that we have this idea of catering to the small amount of people, but we also need to have an idea of catering to the large as a whole. We are a society, we are a community, we are not an individual. We need to benefit the needs of society.
Nebo School District and Provo School District, they contract out for some services in Alpine School District. There's no reason why other districts couldn't do that with other districts. And so a smaller school district can contract with other districts to provide certain services. And that's something that's available to every district in Utah. You can do that. I started telling the story, a lot ran out of time, so I'm going to try to finish it. But that teacher that I talked about, who that student gave up on trying to work on earning the diploma because they get to walk anyways, it's problematic of that big bureaucracy at the top. And remember when we made the decision to reduce the school day, and then a day later we said, oh wait, never mind? It's because we're out of touch, because there's so much bureaucracy between the classroom and the top of the district office. It's too big of a district.
So I think a lot of this comes down to parents in Orem not being heard and feeling that the Alpine School District doesn't listen, or they don't, or they listen but there's not productive conversations and give and take. And that frustration has led to, hey, if we split off, we'll get our own superintendent, and maybe we can get our own curriculums, maybe we can make some changes. And I don't know how that could happen, but what could also happen is we get a smaller Alpine, right? An Orem district, right? That is pretty similar, but just smaller than Alpine. Because we have a diverse community, and there's not just one set of parents that are going to have a say in the new Orem district. It's the Orem community. So I think it's a big issue. I'm waiting for the study. We'll see what happens.
Okay, the next question. How will you support students, parents, and teachers in your role on the school board? I believe the second question relates. We have so many questions, I'm trying to combine them. What will your approach be to balancing public concern with your own information and research? How will you help people be heard while still making tough decisions? Is that too much?
I was gonna say that's a lot, but.
Okay, how will you support students, parents, and teachers?
Okay.
And how will you help people be heard while still making tough decisions?
So you'll hear the response a lot from people who are currently in favor of our current Alpine School Board district saying, oh, they listen to parents, but just because the parents don't get their way doesn't mean we don't listen. I don't agree with that statement because, for example, a survey went out saying, how would you like school to start? And 90% of the parents answered a specific way. And then the survey, that's not even what Alpine School District did. So that's a problem when you're saying, oh, we listen, but then you do the exact opposite. Are you listening? Is that listening? It's one thing to disagree and have a conversation, hey, I don't really appreciate this, versus saying, oh, I hear you. So I feel like it's really important to support teachers and to support students and to support family. It's a triad, it's a triangle. We have to have all three sides of that, otherwise it's going to fall. And so the way that you do that is actually having that conversation instead of closing doors, ignoring, or shutting things out so that we don't get to have those conversations.
I think it's important to know who you work for, and as a school board member, you don't work for the superintendent and you don't work for the business manager of Alpine School District. You work for the citizens who voted for you, and that's who I will work for and that's who I will represent. And so when it comes time to stand up and say, this is what parents want, this is what they want for their kids, and you saw what happened in Davis School District with books that contain pornography and getting those books out of their school. The district sided with keeping the literature there when it was overwhelming that parents wanted that out of their schools. On the other hand, a district in Idaho said, here's 22 books that will not be in any of our schools. Okay, and the parents are the ones that stood up and said, we don't want these books in our school. I work for the parents, and I will represent the parents of Alpine School District.
So we just had a teacher appreciation week a little while ago, and as a teacher, longtime classroom teacher, I've seen the power of working with parents. So not just when there's a problem, when you need to call home and say, so-and-so is acting out a little bit today, let's talk about this, but reaching out when the student does well. And then having that relationship with parents through extracurricular activities and sports to really help students. And if parents and teachers team up, we can do a lot of good things together. I really believe that, and I'm appreciative of the PTA. So I think I would definitely, as a parent myself, and a teacher, represent both parents and teachers at the school board.
One of the most important things that a board does is to hire a superintendent. We hired Dr. Shane Farnsworth not too long ago. He was kind of baptized by fire. But in hiring him, we expressed confidence in his vision for the district. And doing things that hamper him and his ability to accomplish that vision is not really what the board is about. We hired him, and we are in a position where we are going to give him a chance to make that vision come into fruition. And you'll find in this coming fall, he will be rolling out a strategic plan for learning for our students. And I'm very excited about that plan. I need you to know that as a board member, I do not govern by survey. It's not going to happen. Thank you.
So Cole will start the next question.
So we're going to go to the first part of one of those questions, which was, what will your approach be to balancing public concern with your own information and research? And I think this one also relates, so tell me if it doesn't. How will you stay in touch with what the parents, teachers, and students really want and need versus what people in the community outside of school, like the city council, are telling you they need? So how are you going to balance, am I doing justice to whoever wrote this question? Did you get that? How are you going to balance your research, your information being a board member with people's real concerns and what their real concerns are versus what their perceived concerns are?
I love the question. I heard somebody say once, hey, I was getting emails in and 50% said this and 50% said this. Well, if 50% say this and 50% say this, what does the data say? And when you go look at the data, rather than just looking at emails, and if you're just responding to surveys, well, what is the data saying that's creating that survey? Let's look at what the data says. And if the data is against what the survey says, then let's educate and help people understand what the data says and why we should be making that decision. When we came back to school in fall of, I don't remember when, but when we came back to school when we were wearing masks, the data was clear that COVID was not impacting our kids the way that it was impacting others. And there's no way that our kids should have came back to school with masks on if you were looking at the data. But yet they disagreed with the survey and the data and sent our kids back to school with masks on when there was no need to do that.
So the question was, how do you balance your personal beliefs with the beliefs of other people, right?
Their perceived concerns, balancing with your own information and research.
So I think this is a really critical question because everybody that's running has strong opinions, but we're also representing the people that vote in this area and live in this area on the board. And so it's tricky. But I think you have to have an open mind, be willing to learn, listen and talk, communicate well, get feedback, be an advocate for people, and you have to know and have relationships that you've developed over time that you can get things done. And it's going to take a lot of time to be on the school board. Ada can talk about her schedule, there's committees, there's meetings, and I'm retiring to have that time.
These past 2 years have not been a picnic, I'll tell you that. And as Cole said, being data-driven is important to me. Listening to the right voices is important to me. And also making sure that our schools are safe places for our teachers and our students alike is important to me. I believe that, Nicole, that we did the very best that we could under the circumstances. I listened to voices like Dr. Clark Bishop, who actually lives in this area and is a pulmonologist in the Utah Valley Hospital. I listened to voices, I listened to teachers and their need for safety in the classroom. I said that we don't govern by survey, but I want you to know that a survey is a point of information that we take very seriously. Thank you.
I'm really glad that you brought up that last point of I don't govern by survey. If you're not listening to your constituents, who are you listening to? If you're not listening to the parents who are elected you, who are you listening to? And if you're not listening to the data on both sides, who are you listening to? For me, myself, I am extremely capable at hearing something and being able to make a very, very smart decision. It is something I do in a business that my husband and I run, and I have to do it every single day. You have to hear all points and then make the best decision possible and be able to back up that decision, be able to actually confront that decision should it be confronted. And so, you know, the whole situation is, so Orem City was mentioned in that question, something about, you know, doing something versus the Orem City. The Orem City represents the people, does it not? We elected these people. There's 7 people who are on the Orem City Council that we elected. That's a pretty good standard of what the voice of Orem is saying. And so I feel that it is important to listen to all sides, make the best decision that you can. Whether or not it agrees with your personal beliefs, it doesn't matter. It's the best decision of those around you.
Karson will take the mic. Consider one situation, vote, or decision where you would vote differently than Mrs. Wilson. A situation that is not related to COVID or parents' access to meetings. Do you get that question? They don't, this person actually wanted to make sure I understood it. They don't want to hear about that you would have done differently on the COVID decisions, and they don't want to hear that you would have done differently on parents' access to meetings. They want to know what other things you would do differently than this was.
Yeah, so this is a great question. So I've been going to the school board meetings just when I can recently, but I found that the action doesn't happen during the public meeting. So you need to go and listen and attend the study session. And that's where all the data and presentations happen and a lot of conversation happens. I think there's a lot of things where the board, when we listen to the public meeting or go to the public meeting, it seems like they're not discussing it. It's because it's already happened in the study session, those discussions, right? So it seems like they're making decisions kind of fast, but really they've heard the data and the presentations. And so whether it's what kind of math or what kind of reading programs or should we get out of school, change the schedule to, you know, like those things, some of we might have some differences, but I think it's important to study it out and get that information from the study session.
Do I get to respond to this?
Yeah, I don't think you.
Because I'm ready.
They sampled everyone but you. Sorry.
So I don't get.
I think,
I think you're fair. Go ahead, Ada. If you have something to say, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm proud of the way we opened schools during COVID. I think we did a wonderful job of allowing teachers and students to come back to a safe place. And we were in schools when most of the rest of the nation was not. I am so proud, especially of those teachers who on a dime created online classes for that time when we couldn't be here. As far as access to public meetings, on April 27th, a virtual meeting was declared, and the people that turned up at that meeting were no more locked out than any other parent. They knew when they came that the doors were not going to be opened because it was a virtual meeting. Thank you.
I was a parent, I didn't know. Also, something I would do different from Ada, I would not give our administration a rubber stamp. Just because I hired them does not mean they're doing a good job. I'm assuming they are, I'm hoping they are, but I'm not going just to say that they are. Again, I've said this before, I run my own business. I hire people knowing that, okay, I'm hiring you for this specific job. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to check in on that, but I'm going to say, that wasn't so good, let's talk about that. I will not just let people have a pass because I assume they're doing their job. So that's something that I feel like I would do very different. I'm not gonna say Rob Smith is amazing. I wanna see it, why he's amazing. Something that is touted is that he has this huge rating of a AAA, because the district bought that rating. So of course he has a huge rating. So Farnsworth, Mr. Farnsworth, same deal. That's great that if he wants to be able to have an opportunity to do something amazing, I'm gonna check in on that. I'm gonna make sure it's actually going the way that he says it should.
I have tried to do some research on who made this decision, but I'm going to follow up with the story I've been trying to tell. I just can't get it out, I'm sorry. But the teacher came to me and said I was working with this student, and then the district, so who's the district? Was it the board that voted on this? Was it the hierarchy? Said all kids will walk. Everybody will walk. It doesn't matter what you've done, you get to walk at graduation. And the kid gave up. So I went to my counselor and says, did you guys get a memo about this? Well, we just know that it's a thing, and that's what it is. And I start talking to my counselors. How has it been for you? Oh, it's made it so the kids are completely unmotivated to graduate now. They have no incentive to graduate. They get a walk, so why do I need to work towards having the honor of walking and graduation? And we're giving everybody a trophy. We're saying, here you go, here you go, here you go. Everybody gets to walk. And that's one decision that is impacting the classroom, and they don't see the impact that it has on those kids. They're giving up. They don't need to graduate. They get to walk.
I think it is. Okay, this question. This looks like we can do a 30-second one on this one. Have you lived in the seat 7 Orem Vineyard area for a year? Do you work or plan on working for Alpine School District while on the board?
I've lived here for more than 30 years, and I meet the requirements for being a board member, which means I do not work for myself. I think these are important requirements. When you know the community, you know the needs. This is one of the most diverse communities in the Alpine School District.
That's a witch hunt question, and I don't appreciate it. I'm just gonna say that right now. Yes, I've lived here. I'm not a teacher, so that's not an issue, but I do not feel like that is a very, I don't appreciate that question. I appreciate whoever wrote it, thank you, let's have a conversation after, but I'm not a fan of that question.
I'll read to you what the state code says. The state code says that a member of the board cannot be an employee of the board. I work for Alpine School District. I don't work for the Board of Education. The Board of Education is responsible to hire and fire the superintendent and the business manager. They are not responsible for hiring teachers in Alpine School District. I work for Alpine School District, okay? And I'm challenging that, you're right. And I'm challenging it because we need the perspective of a school teacher on the board. That's why I'm challenging it. And if you think a school teacher should be on the board, you should vote for me. If you think we shouldn't have it, then no.
Okay, sorry, I saw that waving back there.
So I'm a school teacher and I'm running for the board. But I'm retiring and gonna have time to really be proactive and to do some things I think our community can use. And I have lived in the area, and I have been an employee of the district for 26 years, and I'm retiring.
Can you give that mic back to Colby? This is directly to you, Mr. Kelley. Because you are not eligible to serve on the school board and work in the school district, do you intend to sue if you win?
No, I do not intend to sue. I intend to win the election, and when I win the election, I plan to, I'm sure there will be a legal matter before us, because I do want to continue to be a school teacher in Alpine School District. Karson keeps making time to be the biggest issue. I'm a worker, okay? I'll have plenty of time to do the job, trust me. I'm a worker, and I'll get the job done. There may be a legal matter before us, and we'll let the courts decide. If a judge, but I'll make this very clear, if a judge says to me, you have a choice, you either need to serve on the board or quit your job. Then I have publicly stated that I will quit my job and serve on the board if that is what I'm required to do.
Sorry, I wasn't making the time. You were. All right, next question. I think, who's next? Is it Ms. Hayes? Okay. What input do you think the citizens should have in curriculum selection, and what is the best vehicle for getting their decisions listened to? Desires listened to.
I think, we are off.
There we go.
I think that citizens should have all this input for curriculum. There are some curriculum that I disagree with very, very, very strongly, and I've made that publicly known that there's curriculum I do not like. I do not like divisive curriculum. I don't like curriculum that says because of a race or a gender or an ethnicity or religion that someone is different or that someone should be treated differently. So I think that parents should have all the input on curriculum. At the end of the day, it comes down to a board member and the members of the board to decide on curriculum. And then it's therefore put to the schools to carry out that curriculum. But it should be up to parents. Parents are number one in children's education. Teachers are the ones who carry it out, but parents are the number one. And so why wouldn't a parent be allowed to have that input? And if a parent wanted to talk to me about it, email, phone, text, voice note, conversation, meeting, lunch at McDonald's, while our kids play, any of those things. That's how I get that input.
My emphasis throughout this debate has been decisions should be made at the local level. And at the local level, we should be making decisions about curriculum. Common Core is a national-based curriculum that has filtered through our schools, and Common Core is how we're slipping in CRT. This is how we're slipping in SEL. This is how we're slipping in some of these tenets that don't fit with the community that we live in. And so the community should have input on that. So absolutely, the local school district and the local school board should have autonomy to be able to say what's in the curriculum. With 50 states, we learn from each other. And we say if some other state is doing something that we like, we're going to learn from that state, we're going to bring it here, we're going to implement it. And we got to learn from what other people are doing, but ultimately we get to decide right here what it is our children are learning.
So, I've been on a couple of different state boards to write curriculum. So I wrote the curriculum for our economics class and our financial literacy class, and those curriculums went out statewide. And it's a tough process, trying to get input. And I guess my question to these people that say parents should decide is, what happens if parents don't agree? Could that happen? Right? And so it has to be a process. I think looking at other states and what works is what we do now. It's not a new idea. And I think it's important to get the curriculum right. I'm also very interested in how we're going to blend learning and do online and give more options to kids, because I think that's the future.
Awesome, thank you. And I think we need to realize just what curriculum is. The school board, by law, has to teach Utah core standards. Those standards are created here in Utah through a process that Karson has participated in. That process includes parents, it includes professionals, educators, it includes panels, it includes a process that rotates. I believe it's every 5 years curriculum is reviewed. What the board does and what the local school does is chooses the instructional materials to teach that Utah core standard. That's what we are about in the Alpine School District, is finding the materials, the instructional materials that will best meet that need and teach all of those principles. That's where we have a say. Thank you.
Okay, this next question is for Ms. Hasson by yourself. Is that right, saying that right?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you intend to unite our community in such divided times?
That is an excellent question. Thank you, whoever wrote that. I've seen our community hurt by many things. I've seen our community hurt by rumors and accusations and division on, they have a political sign that says this and this person has this. I feel like the way that we unite our community is that we just need to bring back that brotherhood and that camaraderie. Our country was never more united than when we were about patriotism. Our country was never more united than we were about the principles that were founded by our founding fathers. Constitutionalism. That's what unites us. We are all Americans, whether we come from Asia, from Africa. We are all Americans, period. If you're a citizen, you're an American. The way to bring that back is by giving a lot more grace and compassion, have differences, but have patience.
Great. This question is for, actually this is more of a statement, so I'm going to read it for all four of you, and then just keep this in mind when you're on the board. I would appreciate more outside time recess for my children. Currently, they get 2 15-minute sessions. There's a huge need for more outdoor movement, and I'm wondering if those needs would ever get met. A change at the district level for more time outside.
Amen.
So here's the question next. Our children are the future. In a few short years, they'll be preparing your taxes or performing your next surgery. As a parent, I am concerned with the number of hours deducted off of my children's education since COVID. It seems Alpine School District is more concerned about teachers than about educating our kids. Number one, what are you going to do to prioritize the students and their education? Do you plan to restore the classroom hours lost? And two, do you think there is a solution to help both teachers and students without cutting classroom hours? If so, what is your solution? That's a big one.
I've been accused of being anti-teacher, yet I'm a teacher. I've been accused of being anti-parent, yet I'm a parent. And you know, the thing that's interesting to me is like, you know what, bringing the perspective of somebody who has had kids in the school and been a teacher, I think is a unique perspective. So I do want to continue to hit on that, because one of the things that it's hard to know how this is impacting our kids in the classroom. What's it doing to them? How are they responding to it? And we've got to bring back accountability into our schools. Everybody walking, attendance policies. We can't get kids to come to class, but there's no consequence for missing class. And then if we fail a class, ask teachers, just do me a favor, ask teachers if they've ever had a principal bring a student down and say, will you work with this kid that failed your class first quarter when it's now the fourth quarter? And what that means is passing. Ask them.
Okay. This is a really important question. I think when we envision education, we sometimes think of it of kind of how when we went to school and there was bells and we're preparing students to work in a factory maybe, and schools changed. There's online learning, there's blended learning, and we need to kind of adapt. But this thing Cole's talking about, giving everybody a trophy, giving everyone a diploma, that's an issue. Also an issue is the differentiated diplomas. So a kid can say, hey, this 26 credits, that's too much. I want to do the 21 credit or the 22 credit. Like, there's all these options now. So what does a diploma even mean? If you're an employer and you're trying to hire kids and you're depending on the high school diploma to equate to some kind of ability to do math and English and read, like, we have to rethink this and get it fixed and get it right and get community buy-in and make it happen.
I think it's true that we have a responsibility to have some sense of accountability in our schools. And this is something that we have discussed as a board, because with online learning, there was a big checkout by a lot of students, and teachers recognize it. It's a problem that they're grappling with and continue to grapple with. It was interesting when we were so concerned about our teachers' mental health kind of at the peak of the crisis. They were worried, we found that they were worried more about absenteeism. They want kids in their classrooms. When they're absent, they get behind on the learning, and it's just important to the teachers that they be there. We have made a really big investment this past year in teacher professional development. We have carved out time in their day for them to learn the deep learning of how students learn to read. And this is an important investment we feel is important to make for the future. Thank you.
I asked my son to go to class and start his stopwatch on his watch every single time the teacher instructed. And then do that. He would stop it when the teacher studied. Guess how many hours the teacher actually instructed? 3. That's all of his teachers, not just the one in his homeroom, all of his teachers. 3 hours was actual instruction. We load our children too much. We have gotten into this idea that education has to be cram-packed full of 8 hours, but we're not actually instructing our children in those 8 hours. And so, going back to the statement about recess, there is more to learning than having a teacher instruct or a textbook or anything like that. We need to have things, going to a dairy farm and learning how to milk a cow and how that cow goes and either goes to market or it goes to, there are so many different things about learning that we don't do. And that's why in America, we spend the most on education and our children are scoring least compared to other countries.
I'm so lost all of a sudden.
That's a new question.
Yes, I know, but who's the next? Who starts?
I started that one, so.
Whew, sorry about that. Okay, I have tried to take these last questions. I want everybody's voice to be heard. But we're really running out of time. So these 3 I'm going to try to lump together. I have been at other meetings, so I know this has been addressed before. So I'm going to read these 3, and I'm going to give you a minute to address them how you choose. Okay? Should all minutes from all board meetings be made available to the public? How important do you believe in the input that parents have in their children's education? And if you ever feel it is important, is it ever appropriate? Oh my word, I'm so sorry. If you feel it's important, is it ever appropriate to have closed-door meetings and lock parents out? On April 21st, the current board, who called AF Police, locked parents out of a public meeting and then proceeded to criminally charge 2 parents who knocked on the windows with misdemeanors. If you are elected, how would you protect parents' rights? We're going to tackle those 3 together.
Okay, so these are good questions. I know by law some things have to be discussed in private. Personnel matters, there's like FERPA rights as parents where you can protect your kids' privacy. Teachers have some of those rights too. So I know some matters have to be a board only, and so I don't think those minutes should be released. However, I'm a parent and I'm a teacher, and I've been listening to the school board sessions on time and a half. It goes fast. I hear your voice a lot, but it's critical that we get more parental involvement in the meetings and showing up to things. And when we team up, parents and teachers, admin listen, right? Have you ever had that experience where a teacher and a parent are in the same team and you go talk to an admin? And so I think it's really important to team up as parents and teachers, and that those meetings should be open and parents should have rights. And that's Alpine School District should listen to parents, right?
Absolutely, I think parents have a right to have input into the educational experience of their children. Alpine School District is unique in its creation of what's called a district community council. And this is a body of unelected but representative volunteers who visit school community councils in a number of schools and have direct access to the superintendent. And he, in turn, in a monthly meeting, has direct access to them. And it's a wonderful vehicle for communication. Yes, there should be minutes made available by law. They have to be available within 3 days of any meeting. They are available in your board documents. If you go to the ASB website, it's under board, and there's an archive that you can find minutes to every meeting. As far as the board responsibility, we are your elected representatives, and we have an obligation to conduct orderly meetings in which every voice can be heard, the loud ones and the soft ones. Thank you.
I also agree that closed session is important, that there needs to be privacy. in saying that I am of the strong opinion that the reason why things have gotten so shaky with Alpine School District and certain parents in this community is because there hasn't been the opportunity to have voices heard. There hasn't been communication. Regarding the comment of April 27th, that was on that question, when parents were locked out. Yes, I was present, I was there. I'm sure most of you in this room are aware of that if you've listened to anything else. I feel like it shouldn't have gotten that far. That should not have happened. And as a parent who was there, I feel like the board just did not want to listen to me. They did not want to take into any consideration what we had to say. And it shouldn't have gotten that far to begin with. The parents getting charged, it should not have gotten that far to begin with. That could have been handled way before. And so I feel like that there needs to be respect, but there also needs to be opportunity to listen.
I've been a part of this situation with parents being charged, with parents being locked out. I was with Jodi. I was outside that building when parents were locked out. I did show up knowing that we were going to be locked out, but what I found out is that 90% of the parents that I've now talked to that were there did not know that. I didn't realize that. I talked to my sister because I said, hey, I knew we were going to get locked out. Did you not know? And my sister had no clue that we were going to get locked out. Okay? And so there were a lot of them. I knew, and I was there in protest. I want to say that this is wrong to lock parents out of a board meeting. And I was there personally protesting against that. If you think protesting is a bad thing, come on, man. The Boston Tea Party, like revolution. No, you have a right to stand up and say, I think this is wrong, and I'm protesting against it. And we've got to listen. The elected leaders have got to listen to the public and listen to the parents. And locking out was just wrong.
Okay, this question will be our last question before our 3-minute follow-up. I think it starts with Ada. I'm going to combine these two questions. How would you prioritize the following activities given a limited budget? There's a list of 5. And then the next question is, where has physical education gone in the elementary schools? Why and what is the solution? So, physical education needs to be on this list with the LLGT programs, language immersion programs, arts programs, extracurricular sports, and plentiful AP classes. One more time, for those of you who are writing notes. Prioritize with a limited budget. ALL programs, language immersion, arts, extracurricular sports, and plentiful AP classes. And PE. I'm sorry, that was negligent. Okay, Ada.
Oh wow, this one's really tough. I think it depends, first of all, on the age group you're talking about. I think when children are young, the more exposure they have to more opportunities, the better. So I like the idea, actually it's not on here, of lots of specialties, and as we can afford them. And I do like physical movement. I was the mother of a child that needed that. If he didn't have that, he didn't perform very well. I'm also a great believer in the arts. Many of my children were inspired by their art teachers in the secondary level. So when we're talking about the secondary level, I think exposure to the arts is important. We can't make those choices for those parents, but we need to make sure that that's something that is available. The question about ALL and DLI, oops, I'm stopped. Those are kind of, there's a balance between those two. Thank you.
I think that we have to be more creative. So PE classes and extracurricular sports activities, how can we combine that? How can we do that? Wouldn't it be fun for our kids at recess to go play, like Orem Elementary, go play against Cherry Hill Elementary and play soccer or go play basketball or something like that? I feel like we could somehow make that smarter, better, having a limited budget. The other thing is with limited budget, how often do we actually reach out to our community? So with regards to saying instrumental or the arts, I know of a family who will go garage garage sale hunting, specifically for violins, pianos, and then they donate those to the schools. And so, how much do we actually reach out to our community? How much do we say, hey, we need help with this? And so, with that in mind, I mean, to balance all those things, there's no way, they're all number one priority in my book. And there's no way you can make one more special than the other.
This is, I think, the mistake that we make in education is that we think that this one should be the priority and this one should be below that. For your child, this may be the priority, and your priority order may be different than this child. And for this child, it may be different than this child. So if your child's involved in this program, that program is the most important to you. And if your child's involved in this program, that's the most important one for you. What we need to do as schools is we need to make sure that this program over here is excellent for all kids. And we need to make sure that this program over here is excellent for all kids. And we should make sure that this program over here is excellent for all kids. I've been a part of athletics. I love extracurricular activities. I'm a wrestling coach, I've been a baseball coach. That's something that I value. And I want kids to have that opportunity. But somebody who doesn't participate in athletics, should athletics in our district be the priority? No, for that child it's different.
So I'm also into athletics and a coach. And I think there's definitely a mind-body connection. We know that we need to physically move, and that helps our brain. I've been disappointed by some of the recess and physical education, I guess, being not as a priority. And I think, like it's mentioned, we need to think outside the box. So for example, if your daughter's in dance and she's doing 2 or 3 hours of dance every night after school, why shouldn't that count as a PE credit, right? It's supervised, it's physical movement, and when you think about it, the school board has said, okay, districts make that decision, and the school districts don't want to open the can of worms and make all these individual decisions, so they turn it back to the state and say, oh, we can't make these decisions. But I think we could get creative, and we can prioritize what's important to students and make sure they're good programs and have some success getting kids to move, because there's too much screen time, right? Am I right on that? Too much screen time for kids? All right.
All right, so in your concluding remarks, I'm going to read these last 2 questions. Well, no, you don't have to include these. I just want you to know these were concerns. And for the sake of time, I was going to go to 2 minutes. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. But I just want you to know these last 2 questions. I think they tell you what you're going to say anyway. What experience prepares you for this position? If elected, what do you want to change first, priority, from what the current board has been doing so far? So we'll give you 2 minutes for concluding remarks. You can include those if you like.
And we start with,
Jodi?
I think it is Jodi, I'm sorry.
Oh gosh, I wanted more time. Sitting here trying to get my thoughts together. As you know, I'm totally kidding. So 2 minutes, right? I believe we need to stop fear-based decisions. Our decisions should not be based off of fear. They should not be based off of the negative what-ifs. Those are important to consider, but they should not be based off of that, because if we actually consider the fact of everything that we do is going to be negative, we would never make any decisions at all. We'd never progress. And so fear-based decisions need to stop. Something else that I feel is really important is that we can't base our decisions of our funding getting cut. I feel like a lot of the decisions that the Alpine School District has made, or that individual schools have made, has been based off of our fear of our funding getting cut. While funding is very necessary, it's a very important part of school, we can't make decisions based off of that. So I need to reiterate that. And then along with that funding idea, we need fiscal responsibility, financial responsibility. We don't just have a blank check. We don't just have okay, here's our budget and let's just rah-rah spend. We don't have that opportunity. So we have to think smarter. We have to think better, and we have to spend wiser. And I feel like as a board member, running my own business for many years, that is my #1 priority, is where is our spending going and how can it be better spent? And so that's one of the things that I would definitely look at as a board member. I would also, as a board member, consider where our current direction is going. Alpine School District has high graduation rates, but as you've heard, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So why is that? Why are we doing that? Why is that the current situation that we're in? I strongly believe, as running for board, it is absolutely vitally important that you know who you're voting for, that you know who you represent. Me, if I don't make it through in June, I know who I'm voting for next. I'll tell you that. And I think it's important that you know here tonight who you're voting for.
I'm going to address the question that I only have 30 seconds to answer because, man, that 30 seconds went quick. But I want to talk about why I'm running, what qualifies me to run. Yes, I'm a school teacher. I'm employed by Alpine School District. I think it's very important to have the voice of the teacher on the Alpine Board of Education and not a teacher who is retired. Do you think that a teacher who retired 4 years ago has any idea what it's like to teach kids with masks on? Do you think a teacher that retired 4 years ago has any idea what it's like to teach kids through COVID and trying to balance the online learning with the personal instruction? Do you think that the perspective of having a school teacher on the board when we continue to make graduation less important and less important, and we continue to make attendance policies less important, do you think the perspective of knowing how that's impacting kids in the classroom would be important to have on the board? Okay? This is why I'm running. I am running because we need the perspective of a school teacher who is currently teaching on the board. And I'm somebody who, throughout my career, okay, I'm known a little bit as a rebel. But I'm known as a little bit of a rebel because I'm going to question the decisions being made. When I understand why you're doing what you're doing, I'll be your biggest fan, your biggest supporter. I'll get behind you, and I have passion. Okay? And I asked my principal about a month ago, I said, hey, you heard I'm a little bit of a rebel now that you've worked with me for 2 years. How is it? He said, I love working with you. You're passionate, but you get it. Right? When I talked to those counselors and I was saying, hey, tell me about this, everybody gets to walk. Okay? And I'm talking with them about, oh man, we need you on the board. We need the board to have that perspective, that understanding of what it's like to deal with kids that are going through this. That's why I'm running.
I love this area. I love Mountain View. I'm a Bruin. Been there 25 years teaching. I'm running because I'm going to have time to get back. I have relationships, and I think we can be proactive and make some good changes and communicate better, listen better. I have a master's degree in economics from the University of Delaware. I'm working on my PhD in education at Utah State. My area of my dissertation is Utah's financial literacy class. We made a requirement since 2008. Every high school student has to take a semester-long personal finance, financial literacy class. No one had really looked at the data. Hey, is this class working? What's happening with this class? What are the outcomes? Cole and I actually worked together on a study for the state treasurer, state auditor, and we found it's working, but that's going to be my area of dissertation. I want to stay involved in the schools. I am a teacher. I have taught for 26 years in the classroom. I understand teaching through COVID. I understand teaching through masks. I lived it. I got my classes online, right? And I helped other teachers get online. We set up in CTE where teachers could collaborate and share Canvas courses, and it helped all teachers with that transition. And I think we can do smart things together if we communicate and team up and build a consensus, get unified, have a goal, and let's just go after it and make Alpine School District even better. And I would just ask for your support. Come in June to vote in the primary, and then we'll see what happens in November. And I love this community. I'm a part of it, and just want to give back and help out.
For the last 4 years, I've served as a board member, and you, whether you recognize it or not, have made an investment in me. because I've spent those 4 years learning a lot. I have been in professional development, I've taken online training. The learning curve is steep, and I want to make good on your investment by serving another 4 years. Thomas Jefferson said that the power does rightfully belong to the people, as Cole said. But he said, if there ever comes a time when the people are not exercising their rights in the system of democracy in a way that makes sense, he said, you don't take it away from them, you educate them. This is the importance of our education system. I believe that there are some things going on that are not quite right when governance looks like harassing district employees when they try to leave the office. Something's not right when district employees are shoved and harassed at a board meeting. Something is not right when police officers have to be called, not once, not twice. They started to show up every time. And they told the board, something's got to change. We don't want to arrest people. And the board said to them, we don't want to arrest people either. And they said, you need to do something. And so we started having online meetings, virtual meetings. Were these meetings closed? They were not. There was a paper on the door that explained how anyone could participate. People outside that building did participate in that meeting. I think we need to examine what is wrong with our democracy when people think this is the way to rule.
I want to thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. I appreciate these four and their willingness to serve. I have watched a little closer this year as I've been a PTA president, how much the board does, and I do very much appreciate their work. I appreciate all of the teachers. It's a tough job, and there's a lot of people to please with a lot of different opinions, so we appreciate you coming tonight and letting us get to know you better, and we appreciate your questions. We got through 22 questions in 1 hour and 15 minutes. I'm sorry if I did not do justice to your question. Please don't hate me. We need to exit the building within 10 minutes, so you have a little bit of time. You can visit outside, but we do need to wrap up. Thanks for coming.
Are you going to post that? It is posted now.